On March 2nd, 2000, a man was admitted to Nagasaki Hospital in Hiroshima Prefecture with horrific burns. A doctor famous for dealing with burns patients examined the man and discovered that he had been lit on fire with a Molotov cocktail, but that wasn't the end of matters. On the contrary, it was just the beginning of a crazy tale that would see 4 men, including the burns victim, arrested, and one woman put on trial for her life. It was a tale of jealousy and how far one would go to protect their business. It was the tale of what would become known as the Telephone Club murder arson incident. First, a little background on what exactly telephone clubs are and why this case escalated to murder. Generally abbreviated to terekura in Japan, these clubs became popular in the late 80s after a change to the Entertainment Establishments Control Law in 1985. Customers, generally men, enter a private room in a club that is furnished with a single phone and a box of tissues. There, they wait for a woman to call them. Depending on how things go, the couple can enjoy nothing more than simple conversation or perhaps escalate to something more. If things go amazingly well, the man might score a real date with the woman outside the club as well. The first clubs opened in Shinjuku in 1985, and this led to a terekura boom throughout the 1980s and 90s, before the internet became commonplace. They were hotbeds of prostitution, and various laws were established nationwide to restrict their usage, such as requiring ID to enter, and limiting areas they could operate. But when more and more people were able to access the internet from their homes and mobile phones, the clubs became unnecessary, and so started to die out. Some attempted to change with the times, now charging a fee to provide a customer with a list of mobile numbers to reach girls themselves. These numbers came voluntarily from girls looking to make a profit off such men. But the terekura heyday has long passed. During the early 2000s, when this incident took place, telephone clubs were still incredibly popular, however, which is what led one owner down a dark path. Rin House, a popular telephone club chain across Japan, started opening clubs in the Kobe area in the late 1990s. Nakai Kayoko, 66 at the time of the incident and daughter of a Yakuza boss, ran her own telephone club business in the area and was less than impressed with her new rivals. In fact, at one point, they ran their businesses in the same building, which led to a lot of butting of heads. There was furious competition between the rival businesses, generally carried out in fierce advertising battles. Handing out tissues with a slip inside advertising a particular business is a favourite in Japan, and the rival clubs were known to be quite passionate in their tissue distribution. However, after various issues, Nakai was forced out of the building while Rin House remained. Not only did they remain, their business flourished with Nakai out of the way. Naturally, she was not pleased with this, and so she hit upon an idea. Nakai hired Sakamoto Akihiro, 45, the boss of a drug trafficking gang in Hiroshima, to deal with the business. She paid him 10 million yen in gift money. She was not technically hiring him, the money was merely a gift. And they came up with a plan for sabotage. Initially, this involved spraying fire extinguishers and sprinkling paint inside the establishments, but this did little other than briefly annoy them. As such, a new and bigger plan was established. This time, they would set fire to them. Sakamoto enlisted the help of 3 other men to carry out his plan. Hori Kenichi, 37, was to be the driver. Then, Kameno Shinya, 30, unemployed, and Sano Kazuyuki, 44, a heavy machinery operator, were to head into 2 Rin House establishments with Molotov cocktails and set them on fire. The plan was never to kill anyone, but it was unsure just how much a few deaths might matter to the perpetrators if they just happened to occur along the way. At 5 a.m. on March 2nd, 2000, the three men headed out. One of them threw a Molotov cocktail into the Dindin House Kobe Ekimae store, but a staff member on hand was able to put it out before too much damage was done. Only one person received light injuries. 10 minutes after that, the men went over to the Motomachi store, the one that used to occupy the same building as Nakai's telephone club. Kameno and Sano approached the building and, once again, threw Molotov cocktails inside. One of the employees again noticed this and grabbed the bottle and returned fire, hitting Sano with it and burning him. Yet, they were unable to put out the others in time and the fire spread, ultimately killing 4 customers and injuring 3 others. These customers were not actually using the phones at the time. It was commonplace for businessmen who missed the last train to sleep in telephone clubs, which ran 24 hours because they were cheaper than business hotels. They were incredibly unlucky to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and ended up paying for it with their lives. The perpetrators then fled back to Hiroshima, where Sano then admitted himself to Nagasaki Hospital with burns from the Molotov he'd been hit with, a Molotov he had originally thrown. The irony was perhaps not lost on him, but either way, the doctor alerted police to the suspicious nature of the burns, and both Sano and Kameno were eventually arrested. Hori, the driver, went on the run when he realized police were after him, and he wouldn't be caught until July 28, 2008, over 8 years later. Sakamoto was also arrested, and this then led to Nakai's arrest 6 years later in February 2006, once police discovered that it all led back to her. She might not have thrown the Molotovs herself, but it was done at her behest. Because of that, 4 people had died. Her intention may have been some simple sabotage to take revenge on a rival business that had driven her out, but that plan killed 4 people, and she was just as responsible for those deaths as if she had done them with her own hands. Prosecutors initially asked for the death sentence for Kameno and life imprisonment for Sano. On November 27, 2003, both received life sentences. They appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, which upheld those sentences on November 16, 2006. Prosecutors also sought the death penalty for Nakai, seeing as it was her idea to begin with that led to the deaths of 4 men. But on November 28, 2007, she was sentenced to life in prison. The same went for Sakamoto, but he was also sentenced to life in prison on December 8, 2008. Once Hori was finally caught, prosecutors sought life in prison for his part as the driver. On December 16, 2009, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Both Nakai and Sakamoto appealed their sentences all the way to the Supreme Court. On August 25, 2010, Nakai's appeal was denied, and on July 8, 2013, Sakamoto's appeal was also denied. In the end, the driver Hori received a 20-year sentence, while everyone else involved received life sentences. An acquaintance who introduced Nakai and Sakamoto also received a 6-year sentence for aiding and abetting the murders. The judges determined that everyone involved knew very well that someone might die because of their actions, even if that wasn't their intent, and so they were willfully negligent. Life imprisonment could be the only answer for the 4 men's deaths. Each of the perpetrators involved is still in prison, but it's unlikely their horrific act of sabotage will be forgotten anytime soon, even as telephone clubs around the country continue to disappear, unable, for the most part, to keep up with the changing times. But what did you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.